Welcome everyone to the 2022 Meet the Candidates Night. I am Michele Forzaglia, PTA Council President. As you know, we have been advertising this event since April, so we are so excited to see it come to fruition. The council is pleased to be able to offer a forum where the community can hear the candidates' views on various topics in order to make an informed decision. We appreciate the PTA units, sports club, as well as community members who all submitted thoughtful questions. It's clear that you're engaged in this process and want the best candidates possible. Thank you to Dr. Glass, Bill Bloom, and Laurie Parada, who were instrumental in assisting with this evening. Another thank you to Daniela and Kyle. They'll be our high school EGO timekeepers. We appreciate them coming out this evening. Lastly, a big thank you to Kathy Meany and Susan Polos from the League of Women Voters, who will be our moderators this evening. Welcome, candidates. In order to ensure a fair and balanced process, please put all your cell phones away. We'll have everything for you on your screen. And just a reminder to mute when not speaking. It will help with everyone being able to hear you from the community. Finally, just a reminder to the community, please go and vote on Tuesday, May 17th. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Susan Polos, representing the League of Women Voters of Westchester, a nonpartisan grassroots organization that does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. It is my pleasure to assist you today. I am merely here to facilitate a process between you, the voters, and the candidates. I live in Katona and not in this district. You are here to listen to the candidates' views about significant issues here in this community and to make your decisions. It is important that we allow the candidates and to use this time in the best way possible. And for that reason, questions were submitted from the community prior to this forum. This is a nonpartisan event for those who have not made up their minds. This event will be recorded by the League of Women Voters of Westchester and will be available for subsequent viewing via various online platforms through Election Day. Only licensed media, including TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled by FCC regulations to air portions of this recording. Anyone else who broadcasts or streams this recording must do so in its entirety. This is to ensure that the content of the forum is not manipulated in any way to create false or misleading impressions of any candidate. This evening, we will be hearing from 8 Board of Education candidates from Eastchester Union Free School District who are running for 4 open positions. We will have opening statements in the order of lots drawn. The reverse order will be used for closing statements. The allotted time for opening statements will be 1.5 minutes. Tonight's candidates are Ms. Christine Lombardi, Mr. Matthew Fanelli, Ms. Laura Giacobbe, Ms. Michele Lawlor, Mr. Steve Projansky, Ms. Cardinale Smith, Ms. Sheryl Smith, and Mr. Stanley Thangaraj. Statements will be followed by a question and response period asked in rotating order. Every candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Each candidate is permitted 2 rebuttals, 30 seconds during the event. Our timekeeper will use a 30-second warning and stop paddle. The only restrictions on candidate statements and answers are respect and civility. I reserve the authority to pause the proceedings to enforce the ground rules and format. We will hear opening statements first from Sheryl Smith.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the PTA Council, the high school EGO timekeepers, and all community members for tuning in. My name is Sheryl Smith, and I've lived here for 13 years. I'm a mother of a middle schooler, past PTA executive board member at Waverly and Greenvale, and 6-year board veteran, and a lifelong educator. I love our town and schools, and it would be my honor to continue to serve as a school board trustee. As a teacher with more than 30 years of classroom experience with high school and college students, I have insight into what students need to survive and thrive after high school. To support student success, I have built relationships during my time on the board, tapped my professional experience and knowledge of curricula, and advanced a number of initiatives, including more flexible pathways into accelerated and honors courses, more integrated co-teaching from elementary to high school, summer bridge programs, curricular upgrades and innovation, including a new parent portal and elementary math curriculum being rolled out next year. And as board president, I initiated a series of student presentations to the board to elevate student voice. With my deep professional experience in the classroom and on the board, I understand the heart of our educational enterprise, the relationship between students and teachers, the school-family partnership, and the mission to educate children for whatever future they imagine for themselves.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of Eastchester. I am Christine Lombardi, and I am honored to be running as a Board of Ed trustee to restore Eastchester to a top New York school district. That process begins first and foremost with hiring a well-qualified superintendent to lead our schools. We need to ensure that our students at all levels are all equipped with the proper needs to fulfill their academic potential, whether it's additional resources for our struggling students or advanced tools for our gifted and talented students. I will strive to accomplish these goals using fiscal responsibility. As the mother of two young daughters at Ann Hutch, I have a vested interest in the success of Eastchester schools. In addition to my work as an attorney, I have the privilege and honor to partner with the New York Legal Aid Society Education Law Project to provide pro bono legal services to low-income families whose children had special needs services either reduced or taken away from them. As a Board of Ed trustee, I will bring my skills of collaboration, advocacy, and negotiation to work tirelessly with the board. I have a fiduciary responsibility to you, your children, to ensure that Eastchester remains a great place to live and learn. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew Fanelli.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening. First, I want to thank everyone so much for taking time out of your day to join us this evening. As many of you know, my name is Matt Fanelli. My wife, Jamie, and I moved to Eastchester about 8 years ago now, and I am the proud father of 5 children. My oldest daughter, Ashley, is a very proud Eastchester High School graduate. My son, Matthew, and my daughter, Ava, are both currently enrolled at Waverly, and my 2 youngest, Joseph and Christopher, will be entering the school soon. My mother was a public school teacher for over 40 years, and I have served on both the boards of Rutgers and Fairleigh Dickinson universities in advisory capacities. Public education was a foundational part of my family. My family is my world, and I know that yours is too. My word is my bond, and every single person on this call tonight and everyone in the community has my commitment to advocate and be the voice of every child and parent in this district. My commitment is to work tirelessly to make sure we provide the best education possible to prepare our children for the future, whether that means going to college or work placement upon graduation. We are behind other districts, and that needs to be corrected. We need to involve the community in as many ways as possible. We need to provide a safe and healthy learning environment for our students. And we also need a superintendent who is invested in the community. And we also need to make sure we can do our part to make sure our senior citizens can continue to afford to live here. I will ensure to each and every one of you open, honest, and transparent communication and constantly solicit feedback so no one is ever left behind.
Thank
I
you.
believe
Thank you.
strongly.
Michele, Lawlor.
Good evening. My name is Michele Lawlor, and I'm honored to be speaking
the time again for her.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Michele Lawlor, and I'm honored to be speaking to you tonight. My husband and I have lived in the district for 14 years with our 4 children. Stephen is a recent graduate, Michael is a senior, and Katie is a freshman at the Eastchester High School. My daughter Mary is a 7th grader in the middle school. My husband may have coached your child over the 9 years he has volunteered to coach rec soccer and basketball. All my children have been actively involved in the sports program in our schools and have enjoyed the camaraderie that comes from being part of a team. I originally decided to run. As a parent, coming to the Board of Ed meetings, I grew increasingly concerned with where the direction of public education in our state was heading. Parents no longer feel that they have a voice in their child's education. I wanted to be that voice for parents. We all value education. As a New York State certified K through 6th grade elementary school teacher, I have experience firsthand in the classroom, so I know what it takes for every child to reach their full potential. I taught in a very diverse district in Yonkers. I understand the importance of a rigorous curriculum and the need to make sure all of our students are prepared for an ever-changing world. I understand the difference between equity and equality. We need to make sure everyone has the same opportunity to succeed and be the very best version of themselves that they can be. We also need to make sure that every child feels like they are an intricate part of the fabric that makes us Eastchester Eagles. I look forward to what the future has in store for our town, and if elected, I will work tirelessly on behalf of the students, parents, and teachers of Eastchester. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Projansky.
I'm Steve Projansky, and I'm running for re-election. My family made Eastchester our home nearly a decade ago. Like many of you, we moved here for the schools. My daughter recently graduated, and my son is proud to learn at Ann Hutch. I come from a family of educators, which has given me a passion for education. I believe children deserve the best education we can provide that not only increases each student's knowledge base, but ignites their passion for learning. I've been a school board trustee for 5 of the last 6 years. I currently chair our policy committee and our labor relations committee. And I've previously chaired our technology committee. And I've been a board liaison for multiple PTAs. We're at a critical point in our district right now. We have to select a new superintendent. We have to implement our new strategic plan, oversee a large bond project, and support innovation in our schools to bring Eastchester schools into the future. We must prepare our students for the next step in their journey, regardless of what that may be. For the best chance of success, we need experienced board trustees who understand the importance of supporting the growth necessary to bring education to the next level. My goal is to ensure each and every student receives the best education possible in an efficient and sustainable manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
Good evening, Eastchester families and friends. I'm Laurie Giacobbe, and I'm honored to be running for the Eastchester Board of Education. I'm a mother of 2 boys, one who will be entering Waverly this September. My husband and I moved to Eastchester because we knew we always wanted to be a part of this wonderful town. The sense of community and care in Eastchester truly makes this a special place to raise a family. To know me is to know I've always been a teacher at heart, and therefore I pursued a career in education early on. I have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education and a master's degree in special education and literacy. At the beginning of my career, I taught in Eastchester and then went on to teach in the New York City public school system. This experience opens up my eyes and my mind to the new opportunities that we could bring to Eastchester. It made me realize of all the curricular work that our district could be engaging in order to make our schools the most competitive that they could be. Throughout my experiences in the classroom, although I'm passionate about curriculum, my most sincere devotion has been to the children. Being an educator to our youngest and most impressionable learners has made me a better teacher, a better person, and a better mother. The lack of advocacy concerning our children is the reason why I'm taking a stand. My fresh perspective, coupled with my vocation as a childhood educator, will be invaluable to the success of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thangaraj.
I am excited to be here and share space with all of you. I'm a lifelong educator with a commitment to student growth academic excellence, and resources and support structures for all of our students. My presence on the board will add expertise on so many academic and extracurricular fronts and a social network to support students, teachers, and coaches. I bring connections to colleges and universities across the world. I bring professional sport leagues into our backyard. I bring a network of educational specialists from across the nation. These connections and this commitment is one to open the broadest possible venue for academic excellence, an academic excellence that affirms students' goals, passions, and calling, an academic excellence that creates important bridges between students, teachers, and the community in the pursuit of student success. I am an award-winning teacher. I am an award-winning sports coach. I am an award-winning mentor. Let us make this the best school district in the nation for all of our students. Mental health services, support services for all of our students, and mentoring are vital to our students. We have an increasing number of suicides and drug overdoses in our district and in schools across the country. I am here to serve on the board, not in a climate of fear, but in a climate of hope that with the best trustees, we can support all of our students, provide safe spaces, and give them the resources to excel. Let the school board serve students for the present and future.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to be here to discuss my candidacy for school board trustee. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, the PTA councils, the timekeepers, and all of you who submitted questions and are watching this event tonight. I currently have one child at Ann Hutchinson, one child entering Waverly in the fall, and one who graduated the high school in 2019. My family and I moved here 6 years ago for the strong connections to family exhibited by the community, the overall reputation of the schools, and finally the distinguished special education resources of which my eldest child, who had an IEP, utilized. Professionally, I am a physician and medical researcher with expertise in policy writing, data analysis, conflict resolution, and managing complex budgets. These are core skills that will be valuable as a trustee. The mission and vision of Eastchester Schools is to provide a quality education in a safe, stable, and secure environment that fosters mutual respect, promotes the uniqueness of the individual, provides opportunities for student success, and guides all students intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially. I want our board to follow these principles as we move forward in this next important part of our growth. Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." I am committed to excellence in our schools so that education is used for good and our students go on to make meaningful impacts on the world. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to questions. Questions have been submitted by each of the school PTAs, the Special Education PTA, the Athletic Club, the School Foundation, and the larger community. In some cases, similar questions have been combined. Question 1. What particular experiences or skills have prepared you to serve as a board member? Is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the Board of Education? And we will start with Sheryl Smith.
My experience in the classroom and serving on the school board in the last 6 years has prepared me to continue to contribute to the excellence in this district and to build the district. As a board member, I have been the chair of the Education Committee for 5 years. I chaired the Community Relations Committee. I served on the Labor Committee and on the Facilities Committee. In these roles, I helped advance the district forward, and I also was part of the last hiring of the superintendent. I learned the importance of collaboration and consensus building during this time. And I bring the experience also of working with students and hearing from students what motivates them, what inspires them, what struggles they have. I bring that to my service on the board to think about how we can best support students for the greatest success after school. I am particularly motivated by my connections to special ed. I have served students with special needs as an educator, and I have advocated for special needs personally within the district for my own child. I know that this community is a supportive community that works together to advance the interests of all students. And I am particularly motivated to bring that energy, the energy of mutual support between families and educators, to all the work on the school board.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you. First, as a parent, first and foremost, you are your child's greatest teacher and your child's advocate. So to me, that unique experience as being a mom has qualified me to be on the Board of Ed. Professionally, as an attorney, my work entitles me to be aggressive in advocating for clients, as well as problem-solving skills, knowing when there's a deadline, being able to make decisions in a timely manner, and having a budget oversight with respect to looking at complex finances of clients. In addition to my work as an attorney, I'm also an advocate with respect to my pro bono work as an attorney for helping children with special needs for low-income families. The pro bono work through the New York Legal Aid Society has availed me to see how callous other school districts are and how unique and special Eastchester is with respect to children with special needs. Being a fighter for children with special needs, as well as my child, who's also being afforded services in the school district, is invaluable. And so my skills as an advocate, as an attorney, as a parent, I think brings together all the qualifications for a board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you again, Susan. What has prepared me to serve as a board member has been my financial acumen, my business sense, the fact that my family is a family of educators, and probably most importantly, talking to the people in the community. And really some of the things that enabled me to step forward and to attempt to make a difference, I frame it up really in 3 words: defer, deflect, and abstain. And I think for far too long, as I sat on the sidelines and watched some of the board meetings, specifically in my own house, where my 5-year-old daughter at Waverly and many of your children was left to eat on the floor in the hallway, was shocking to me. It was a safety issue, it was a concern, and it was something that myself as a parent and in speaking to the community, I wanted to do something about. My responsibility in my business role, as I said before I ran out of time in my opening, I will watch every penny, I will ask the hard questions, and I will advocate for every single student and parent in this district to make sure no one is left behind. We have to listen to the parents. We have to listen to their feedback. They're the ones making the ultimate decisions for their children, and that's what really inspired me to run for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. My job, my experience. Thank you. My experience as a teacher has prepared me for this role. I taught math and science on the 6th grade level, and I had to constantly collaborate with other teachers on my team who also had those same students for other subjects. It was a holistic approach to make sure each student was reaching their own unique potential. In order for the children to be successful, I needed to communicate effectively with my team so that we could all address any weaknesses or strengths our students were experiencing. That way we could deliver targeted lessons to improve their understanding or challenge it. The reason I think, pushed me to get involved was I was very concerned with the safety aspect in our schools. On April 5th at a Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Glass stated that the district is still struggling with the day-to-day management of our security guard personnel. He alluded to the fact that there are lots of gaps and little seams that add up. And this was very concerning to me as a parent. I think first and foremost, we have to make sure that our children are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
Hi, so my qualifications would be, of course, that I've been a board member for the last 5 years. So I understand the importance of collaborating with board members and with building consensus. One of the most important roles of the board is to create policy. I have served on the policy committee for 3 years, and I'm the current chair of the policy committee. I've also been on, I'm also chairing the labor relations committee, which is in the process of negotiating contracts with many of our units. I have previously chaired the technology committee, and I have served on the education committee as well. So I've had a broad range of experience on the board. The reason I first ran for the board was not because I had any problem or any issue that I wanted to address. It was for my passion for education and for community service.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
The first reason why I would be a great candidate as a board trustee is my background in elementary education. Within my career, I have taken on leadership roles. Throughout my experience as a teacher, I've played an active leadership role within my school. I attended workshops for rigorous curriculum and then turnkeyed it onto my colleagues. I've also been a teacher leader for my grade. Part of the responsibility is making sure that the team is working collaboratively by planning coherent instruction and providing accountability for student achievement. From these positions, I learned how to work collaboratively with others, become an effective communicator, and build respectful teams, even if we do disagree, all while putting the needs of students first. Reason why I did want to become a great candidate for the Board of Trustees is I feel like Eastchester's ranking dropped significantly, and we do need a competitive curriculum to make Eastchester one of the best school districts. I am dedicated, I'm passionate, I am a mom of young children entering this district, so I'm invested in this district.
Thank you. Stan Thangaraj.
Thank you very, very much, Susan. So for me, I have experience working with youth in the educational system from kindergarten to graduate school. And I've also coached from youth soccer and youth basketball to high school volleyball, high school basketball, and college basketball. And so what this shows is a commitment to mentorship across the realm of the educational journey. And through this, I've also, informally mentored students from our district, and I am, without any doubt, anywhere I go, my footprint is building community. And that's what I want to do by building and expanding the community here by linking our students to universities and colleges across the US, bring in experts, right? Bring in a wide assortment of experts to provide detailed expertise while providing resources for our community that equip parents, students, teachers, and administration. And finally, I am a devoted mentor to my students who listens to every student to help cultivate their future, and especially with young men who are struggling in high school. The numbers of young men getting into school, into college, and their actual scores have dropped tremendously the last 20 years. And as a mentor for young people, I hope to help young men be able to reach their standards and their goals and their passions while helping young women move through institutions that haven't always supported them. So mentorship for all is one of the ways in which we can build our future.
Thank you. Cardi Smith.
My mom is a retired social worker who worked for special education in the school system in New Jersey for the majority of her career. She instilled in me a sense of service, that it is my responsibility to serve others when I am in a place to do so. I shared some of my professional experience and background already. Additionally, I teach communication. I think communication is a key concept to what is needed in our district and to do this work successfully. So many members of our community have opened up their homes to talk to myself and my colleagues as we've been going around canvassing and running for the board. One consistent theme we've heard is around an inclusive and safe learning environment for our students. I heard our Eastchester parents share stories about comments made by students with respect to either religion or race, and students being bullied because of how they identify. In fact, Dr. Keene, the Ann Hutchinson principal, sent out an email a while ago that said, "At this time, I am noticing a problematic pattern of students making prejudiced comments as a joke." As a parent with children in elementary school, that deeply saddens me. And as a parent who wants to have involvement in their children's education and growth, it enrages me so that I want to be able to be an active participant. We know that students thrive and achieve the most academic success in a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment.
Thank you. We will now go to question 2. The next board will be responsible for hiring a new superintendent. What are the most important qualities that you would seek for this crucial role? We're going to start with you, Cardi Smith.
Hiring a superintendent is the most important role of a school board. The school board sets the policies, goals, and objectives for the district, and it holds the superintendent responsible for implementing the policy and achieving these goals. In the year where we need to hire a new superintendent, it's important that the board has experience. It will be important to gather parents and other stakeholders to listen to the qualities they value in the superintendent and for the future success of students, and for the board to honor the public's input and incorporate it into the process. It would be wonderful to have a superintendent who has experience executing a strategic plan, as the district has just developed one to describe the vision of a graduate and to really move and lead our academic curricula moving forward so that we can achieve more success and increase our rankings. A candidate with broad experience in public education, a strong instructional background, a record of accomplishment, someone who's visionary and thinking about the next innovation in teaching, an effective communicator, and someone with a focus on professional development for school staff, I think would be important qualities. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
There is there's a unicorn out there, the best possible superintendent. He has or she has expertise in both curriculum and budget, and that's what we need to find. I agree with Cardi that hiring the superintendent is arguably the most important job that a board has. I am the only candidate who has hired a superintendent, and as an educator in the university system, I've hired many upper level administrators, from associate provost to deans. We need to first find the very best search firm that fits well with our community and make sure that we have a robust community input process going forward so we know what the community wants in their new superintendent. We want the best people that our school and community needs. We pay well, we have great families, great students, great programs, and we can attract the best. We need to cast a wide net to get a 21st century candidate with the best training, knowledge, and experience, a transparent and collaborative leader who will unite the community and work well with all stakeholders across the district, a forward thinker, an innovator, an optimist, and someone who understands new educational technologies and the new professional landscape that students will enter and will support students and staff in bringing students into that landscape in the best way possible.
Thank you. Christine.
Thank you, Susan. I think it's been echoed several times that hiring a new superintendent is crucial to the future of our district. Our site, the Eagles Upward site, has specifically articulated a key list of all the characteristics that we would like to see in the hiring of a new superintendent. Certainly one that would have ties to the community, a superintendent who knows and understands Eastchester, a superintendent who is steadfast in his or her principles, because I think what we've seen in the past is that some of the reasons why we're behind in rankings is that there has been a paralysis by analysis. We need a decision maker who's not afraid to make the decision on a quick and timely manner, who can work with the board, who can pivot when needed. It's crucial that we find the next superintendent to bring Eastchester into the future and to hopefully increase our ranks to a top New York school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you, Susan. I think we could all agree that one of the most critical roles of the new school board is going to be to hire the new superintendent. In my career, I have hired over 200 people thus far, and there are 3 key pillars to hiring: responsibility, integrity, and collaboration. For our next superintendent, we need someone with very strong financial intelligence, someone that includes the community. I've spoken to past board trustees, to past superintendents, to people that are living here, that have been on boards, that have done things. We need to include them as part of that. I will also tell you that finding a known collaborator may be the most important thing that we actually do, and someone with ties to the community that also buys into athletics, our fields, and getting us not only back on track, but ahead of the curve is going to be paramount. The fact that we are no longer listed in the nation's best high schools is extremely concerning to me. It is going to be a big job, but I do think that the new board can find the person to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. I think same thing to echo what Matt was saying, that, it's arguably the most important job of a Board of Ed to find and hire the next superintendent. The superintendent implements the vision and the goals that a district has for its students and communities. I agree, we need a superintendent who will promote and prioritize athletics. They are essentially the CEO of the school district. They have the responsibility of supervising and hiring other administrators and working closely with the chief financial officer. And the goal of a superintendent is to make sure the students of their district are learning and achieving at a high level. Being a great communicator, listener, decision maker are just a few of the key qualities that I would look for in the next superintendent. And if elected, I look forward to that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
So as everyone's mentioned, this is one of the critical jobs of a Board of Education is picking a superintendent. What I look for in a superintendent is, first and foremost, I want a good communicator, someone who's clear, concise, and transparent. But I also want to get a little more specific on what our district needs. I think we need someone who understands and uses data to make meaningful change, right? What's in the data to understand why did our ranking fall in US News and World Report, right? Or what's happening in specific areas and where do we need to improve and make meaningful change. I want someone who has experience implementing strategic coherence plans, because that's where we are now. We've created one and now we need to implement it. We need someone strong with experience successfully implementing it. I want someone who will support our staff. That person needs to support the people who are helping our children day in and day out. I want someone with experience differentiating curriculum. I think it's incredibly important that we meet students where they are. And finally, someone who has experience with large bonds and construction projects. That's really important given the large bond that we recently passed. And I would just add that only 2 of the candidates here have experience on the board. While I did not hire the previous superintendent, I have years of experience in managing and evaluating superintendents. Thank you.
Laurie Giacobbe.
The superintendent has the utmost important role in that he or she is the face of the district. His job is to, or her job will be to implement the school board's vision by making day-to-day decisions about educational programs, spending, staff, and facilities. Some qualities that of a superintendent would be a visionary, an innovative thinker, a decision maker, someone with strong financial intelligence, and someone that is a supporter of our teachers and their continuing education, to someone that would drive to increase the school ranking and the knowledge of the building and the facilities. Someone who loves and appreciates the town of Eastchester. But most importantly, his or her top priority would be the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan Thangaraj.
Thank you. So I think, this is an important task, as everyone here tonight has mentioned. And I just want to add that, the next hire has to be someone who has an expansive social network of experts in the curricular realm, in the medical realm, in the counseling realm, to really equip our students with life after high school, whether it be the job force or at the premier colleges across the US, right? And so someone who has this ability, as Matt mentioned, to collaborate and to really work with students, families, and teachers, and be there, as Steve mentioned, with staff. It's so crucial that we have a superintendent who has the ability to support teachers and coaches who have been completely left out of most of these conversations. So how can we bring teachers and coaches along with students back into the conversation? And finally, someone who, while working with the budget and knowing how to manage a budget, also has the ability to work with students to see what they need to succeed in college, right? And that means creating and supporting and expanding a curriculum that best prepares our students for college, because that's the only way our rankings go up.
Thank you. Question number 3. What kind of relationship should the board have with its community? How would you manage parents and families with varying points of view? And we'll start with you, Stan.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And for some of you that don't know what I do, I'm an anthropologist who spends enormous amounts of time living with communities to find out what makes sense in their world, how they make meaning of their world. And this is where I think it's so crucial that we create an environment on the board where we have parents and community members and students and teachers and staff all involved in the process of conversation, of dialoguing, and being able to stress and really affirm what they need. So I think here, one of the things we need is to be able to have a space where we allow our community to really construct a resource list of all of our expertise and our professional calling, so that we have experts in the community that come into our classroom, right? In addition to the institutional and educational experts we'll bring in from across the US and the world, we have to have a roadmap for our community. And being on the board, we create that roadmap to see the talents, just like my fellow candidates today bring a wide swath of talents and resources. We have to be able to map that out. And that's one of the things, being on the board, I want to listen intently, want to listen deeply, to understand what our skills and expertise and resources are to equip our students.
Thank you. Cardi Smith.
Parental involvement is one of the most important parts of our children's education. As a researcher, I am often very well versed with using survey and survey design to answer key questions. The challenge with that is that you don't always get the level of engagement that you want. And in order to get success for students, we need to have parent engagement, and not just one part of our community, but the broader community. I think there are ways that we can think about how we can incentivize parents to engage in surveys, to engage in communication. For example, during the school board elections, Ann Hutch, that's been my experience, they also have a time where the kids can vote for what kind of day they want, crazy hair day versus pajama day. And it's a way to get the parents out to be able to vote. I think we need to think more critically about ways in which we can engage community like that. I think another example is to do focus groups, right? You can't always ask questions if you don't know what questions to ask. And so really being able to, expanding on what Stan said a bit, to engage with parents one-on-one in group formats to understand what's going on. I also think that, we have a portion of this community that are non-English speaking. So we can't only reach out to parents in English. We have to use multiple forms to reach out to parents, as well as multiple different languages to really get the most level of engagement that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
I agree. Parental input is critical to ensure students' success and their well-being during their school years. I have experience working through established systems to create pathways for parental input. So for instance, from my position on the board, I have helped advance the new parent portal that is going to be rolled out next year for grades 6 to 12 to help students stay up to date and informed about the academic progress of their children. I've also advanced from my role as chair of the education committee, a new platform, EduPlanet 21, It'll be a new online curriculum platform that allows for consistent curriculum maps, horizontal and vertical alignment, and most importantly, community transparency. We can get those curriculum maps on the website or online so everyone knows what is my child doing in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and so on, and how do those things connect. As board president, I set up various task forces, including a task force on the bond in 2019 to determine the scope of the current bond that was to go up for vote in March of 2020. That brought in many community members, parents, as well as business owners, law enforcement, and others. I initiated student presentations on the board to elevate student voice and engage more families. And I will ensure processes for parental engagement with curriculum as well.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you, Susan. Communication and transparency is an important feature of the Board of Education. Unfortunately, it's been a weakness over the past several years of the board. The board's website is a disaster. There is no website, there's no link that anybody from the outside can go to check to see what the status is of policies, where my child is in school. Curriculums aren't posted. It's an absolute abomination. I find it very ironic that we have colleagues who have been on the board who are posting now how great their success is in bringing and implementing all this new technology. However, where was this technology 6 years ago? We can't find anywhere on the website children's curriculum. I even had a hard time trying to find the link to my own Board of Education bio on the link. The website needs to be enhanced. The website needs to also disclose the policies that are up for committee. There shouldn't be any there shouldn't be any policies that should be behind closed doors. I think the Scarsdale School District has their website posts all the committees that are up for review on an annual basis. They have an audit trail. They have a link or a feedback so that the community members, not just the parents, community members who have a stake, especially our taxpayers, can go to the link and upload their comments and concerns. I think first and foremost, that is something that needs to be addressed immediately in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thanks again, Susan. The type of relationship that the board should have with the community is a transparent one and an inclusive one. We need to have constant communication with parents, and we should listen to them. Just communicating with them does not mean we're listening to them. Very, very important distinction. We are fortunate enough to live in a community of retired educators, tradesmen, past heads of civic associations. We need to include them and ask their opinions. They have really good ones. In the past couple of weeks, and for those of you on the call that know me, as I said, my word is my bond, and I will roll up my sleeves and dig in. There is a real price to pay for continued inaction. We are fortunate enough to live in this beautiful community. We need to reach out to everyone in the community to get their thoughts, to get their input, and to enable them to help the board make a difference for the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. I think the parents did a great job, actually, of getting involved, especially at the Board of Ed meetings. They were all very concerned with the direction of public education, where that was going. And I actually recently challenged a book I discovered to be in our middle school library. It's entitled All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I personally don't believe in banning books. I do believe, however, in age-appropriate material for our children. I'd like to read an excerpt from the book so that parents at home can come to their own conclusions. If you have children watching, though, you may want to ask them to leave the room. And I quote, "There you stood in front of me, fully erect, and said, 'Taste it.' At first, I laughed and refused. But then you said, 'Come on, Matt, taste it.' This is what boys like us do when we like each other." The whole time I knew it was wrong, not because I was having sexual intercourse with a guy, but that you were my family. I only did it for 45 seconds before you had me stop. Then you got down on your knees and told me to close my eyes. That's when you began oral sex on me as well. You began stroking yourself in front of me. Then you began to moan slightly. You ejaculated into the toilet in front of me. Our children Their mental and emotional safety is just as important as their physical safety. As parents, we know that childhood is a magical time and innocence lost forever. Innocence lost is lost forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Projansky.
So I'm going to answer the question that was asked. So I think that it's really important that we have communication with the community. Education is done best in partnership between the schools and the parents. I think it's not just about communicating out with newsletters. It's not just about accepting public comments at school board meetings. I think we need to have more coffees, more events where we can have dialogue and hear from parents. I also think we should do the same for students. We should have more dialogue with students where we can hear the issues and talk through them and understand the specifics of them. I think these relationships are critically important because truly partnership with the parents is the way to get the best education. I do want to address one comment that was made about the fact that policies are not available on the website. They are. I agree our website certainly needs to be improved. There's no question, but the policies are all up for the public. And in fact, I also wanted to mention that at board meetings, you can see first reading and second readings of all policies that are up for consideration. So there's weeks before they're voted on where they're all posted. And finally, in terms of curriculum, actually, if you look, Waverly has a really nice curriculum, Parents Guide to Curriculum, and they had a curriculum night. So I think we need to expand that to other schools as well, but it is up there. Thank you.
Okay, and Laurie Giacobbe.
The type of relationship that we should have with our community is based on transparency and a two-line way of communication with parents. I also feel there's a lack of transparency regarding the curriculum the district uses. It's very difficult to find anything on the Eastchester School website. I feel rubrics should be posted for parents so that they can assess their child before meeting with before meeting their teachers, before parent-teacher conferences, like other school websites do. We need to hear the ideas of parents. They're their child's best advocate, and they have their best interests at heart. Thank you.
Is that a rebuttal? Yes. Okay. You need to unmute.
Just a quick comment to clarify my statements about the policies. My statements came from information that I gained from reading the strategic action plan and the observation of the district's hired consultant. The statements with respect to the policies and the policies review and the links to other communities, that was from the district's hired consultant. So that was based on my observations, quoting from the hired person that the board hired with respect to looking at the transparency. So that I just wanted to clarify where my information came from. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to question number 4. How would you define diversity, equity, and inclusion? And based on the current proposal from the DE&I committee, what additional steps would you suggest or implement? And we will start with Laurie Giacobbe.
Regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, I was born in Ireland, and I immigrated to this country with my parents. I grew up and I taught in the Bronx. I do believe it's so important to teach children about the acceptance of others. Having taught in a diverse population of students, I have embraced different ways of learning, living, and thinking. While this is a sensitive topic, it's the reality of public education. We need balanced and moderate decision makers to make sure this content is appropriate for all children. Regarding inclusivity for grade levels, specifically like K and 1, we could bring in guest speakers, children's parents to share their cultures. We could introduce different holidays, which I know Waverly, does. And we can, most importantly, just celebrate and teach kindness. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Thangaraj.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for that question. And so, there are many, many, sectors that we have to do DEI work, and one is without any doubt within the, the curriculum. We have to have a curriculum that matches with the world outside of our schools, right? A world that our students will move through. Our students are not bounded to just our schools. They're bounded to a world outside of our schools. And so to have a curriculum that addresses the complexity of our world while providing our students with the resources to be compassionate, thoughtful, and devoted leaders is absolutely vital. And so that is the curricular realm where we have to address it both in the humanities and the social sciences while paying attention to the expansion of STEM. While I think the other realm is to prepare our, to address DEI with regards to Title IX and sports, right? The ways in which women's sports has often been overlooked, overshadowed, and has not been given the same types of resources at times in schools across the US. I think support for women within our schools, especially our teachers, is absolutely vital. In a time where there are so many attacks on our teachers, I think DEI is a way to provide support for teachers and administrators and coaches that are trying to cultivate these spaces for all of our students. And DEI means supporting students regardless of their ability, disability, race, ethnicity, class, sexuality, and their location. So thank you.
Thank you. Cardi Smith.
New York State has developed a culturally responsive framework, and it is now a requirement that schools incorporate this framework into their work. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force with Cheryl and Stan, among others. And it was really wonderful to meet members of the community who don't think like me, who have different thoughts and different values, and yet we are able to come to a collaborative place where we understand that at the end of the day, the most important thing is centering student success. Did you know that 1/3 of all of the students in Eastchester identify as non-white? And yet, if you look at our teachers, at our staff, at our board composition, it isn't reflective of our community as a whole. We know that representation matters. It matters for people to see who they are, whether that is race, gender, religion, point of view, neurotypical learning differences or not. And I think that the DEI task force started some important work. What came out of that is we are Eastchester. And I think that it is a stepping stone to being able to do much more. There will be a culture and climate survey that comes out of that work to understand what students and staff are feeling. And it will be important for this next board to use that information to make our school systems better. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
When I think about DEI, it's about the individual experience of a child in feeling safe and supported. So when a middle school student walks into the cafeteria, do they have a place to sit, someone to fit in with? When students from elementary to high school walk the halls, do they hear hostile words that make them feel uncomfortable? Do new students who are English language learners have structures to communicate and connect with their peers? Do all students have structures of support at school to help them address their experiences? DEI is about fostering a culture of care in schools and about meeting students where they are, socially, academically, emotionally. Representation absolutely matters. Let's let students see themselves and their families in class texts and in school environments. And ultimately, students cannot meaningfully access their education if they do not feel safe, seen, and supported. So for me, the next step in the DEI process is this school climate survey. I was on a subcommittee in the DEI task force, and I was with a teacher who uses it in her district. She supported using it here. It's called Panorama, and we're going to roll it out next year. It's part of our budget for this year. It's for staff, it's for students grades 2 or 3 and up, and for parents to measure the factors that influence climate at school, including teaching and learning, social interaction, safety, interpersonal relationships, professional relationships, physical environments. We have to center student voice in this process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you. And I want to thank the three members of the For the Students that worked on the DEI board. I know that no one's ever objected to their findings, and I just want to let everyone know that we respect the decision of the committee. No student should ever be made to feel as if he or she doesn't belong or is unwelcomed. Now, I support, and I know the rest of my colleagues, we all support making a school environment as welcoming and as inclusive for all involved. And we are for appropriate disciplinary measures for any student who makes another child feel uncomfortable, whether it's discriminatory or disparaging remarks. Diversity programs can't work unless there's the backing of the community. And it is very important to teach acceptance of all cultures, race, religions, and emotional backgrounds. I do know that from the moment that the child steps forth in Waverly, they're met with the motto of Waverly, that in this school you have a safe, welcoming environment that teaches kindness. And I know that those attributes follow the children through their academic career and on to Ann Hutch. I do have to say I'm a very proud mom of an Ann Hutch heart helper who at recess's job is to go look for little students who have a hard time making friends or just need a friend on the playground. So I think our schools are doing a wonderful job with the DEI inclusion. And I think any education with DEI has to be age appropriate for each school. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you. In my corporate role, I'm actually on several different DEI committees, but quite frankly, the most important work that I'll ever do as it pertains to DEI is actually within my own family. I have a biracial family, and in my family, we've learned that we are all way more alike than we are different, and that's really the focus. As it pertains to how that comes about in school, I know from my daughter that graduated from high school and from my children that are currently in Waverly, the inclusion of holiday events and projects and bringing in people from the community, as you just heard from some of my colleagues, and I say colleagues meaning all 8 of us in this room right now, and their level of participation, I think is of the utmost importance. But I think we can focus more on how we're all alike. That's what works in my own family, and I think that works for a lot of people here in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Michele Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. I couldn't agree with Matt more. I'm from Woodside, Queens, arguably one of the most diverse places in the world to grow up in. My parents never sat me down and spoke to me about race. My 2 best friends in elementary school was a Hispanic girl, and one of my friends was from India. We just clicked. I don't know why, we just did. I don't think kids see color. You need to reinforce in all children to find the similarities in one another. For example, when I was reading Cardi, your bio, I learned that we have many things in common. We're both from Queens. We're both tall girls. We're both first-generation American. We both value education, and the list goes on and on. I think when it comes to our youngest learners, we need to teach acceptance, kindness, and appreciation that our differences are beautiful. Have a harmony day, possibly, where everyone belongs, and have them draw a picture of themselves, possibly put a world map in the middle of those pictures, and with a piece of string or yarn, connect those children from maybe where they're from and what cultures they celebrate. Invite parents to come in and teach about their culture. Exposing children to different cultures and parts of the world is a wonderful thing. The DEI task force was comprised of parents, teachers, administrators, and community members. I publicly endorsed the plan at a Board of Ed meeting because I believe it was well thought out, and it was a group effort made by teachers, parents, administrators, and community members. I respect and appreciate all the hard work that everyone did to get us there. Thank you.
Okay, Steve Brzezinski.
So the school board should focus on one overarching value, student success, and everything else needs to be looked at from that lens. Research tells us that people, including children, perform best in a safe and supportive environment that gives them a sense of belonging, and every student in our district deserves this. I think the DEI committee was a great opportunity for our amazing educators to partner with parents in the community to develop these recommendations. And I'm hopeful that as the administration looks at ways to implement DEI, that they now add student voice. I know we're going to be implementing this new student program to get more of their voice, the climate and culture survey. I really hope that that is, I think that's for staff and students, and I really hope that that's really carefully analyzed, because these are the people who are living in the schools for hours a day, right, 180 plus days. The one thing I want to mention is that we've had students come to our board meetings this year and tell us about their experiences. And over the last few weeks, I've spoken to community members and actually watched parents break down into tears, telling me about the experiences that their children have had in our schools. So it's clear we need to do more than what we're doing today. And I'm hopeful that these recommendations and the climate and culture survey will help lead us in the direction to where we no longer receive messages from our principals that there's bullying in our elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 5, how would you support social emotional learning within our schools? And we'll start with you, Steve.
So I'm proud to have supported the administration's work to make SEL consistent across our schools. In the last few years, we've expanded the SEL program and formalized using a multi-tier, an MTSS framework. What does this mean for our students? Well, it promotes in-school success. According to a 2021 report by McGraw-Hill, 91% of teachers believe that SEL will improve students' grades. Quinnipiac reports that schools that implement SEL programs improve graduation rates by 6%. And a 2017 meta-analysis of over 97,000 students showed that 13% higher academic achievement for those participating in SEL programs. It also promotes a safe and supportive learning environment. And as I just mentioned, that's where students learn best. It helps students recognize their emotions and manage their behavior. It helps students understand and have empathy for others. And it helps students foster positive relationships and constructively deal with conflict. And I'm very proud of the work that the district has been doing. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen them in the past few months, each of our elementary schools has presented their SEL programs to the board and the community. And I would highly encourage everyone to watch those presentations. It really is great. It explains what happens in the classroom, the tier 2 and tier 3 interventions as well, which, by the way, requires parental consent and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
Social emotional learning should be a top priority, a top teaching priority, especially in the elementary grades. Because of the time lost in the classroom, many students have difficulty in social situations, such as learning to control their emotions, managing behaviors. I believe it is the job of the school to promote inclusivity and create a safe learning environment for our students. Integrating social emotional strategies can support instruction and have a positive impact on academic achievement. As a board member, I would advocate for more assemblies on social emotional health. I would also like to see maybe more field days, especially in the elementary schools, where children can focus on working together and team building. Communication, getting along with others are all problem solving skills are all skills taught in an SEL program, which could also relate to STEM. These skills help students build healthy, supportive, and successful classroom environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Thangaraj.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, SEL is incredibly vital to our students' growth across the board for all of our students. And so what SEL does is, it allows us to create much more elaborate connections between our students, the curriculum, teachers, and also the amazing counselors we have on our campuses. So what it also allows us to do is do away with the stigma that is often associated with students who are struggling, who are having a hard time, who don't feel like they have the space or the voice to express their anxiety, right? And in this period where we've had 20 students, and may they all rest in peace, who have committed suicide or have had drug overdose in the last 7 years, we need to think very critically about how SEL really nurtures students and provides support structures from elementary all the way till they're done with high school and middle school, and high school being really important places. What SEL does is allows students to have a stake in the project of education, allows them to claim their needs, allows them to be recognized and have a very active role in the project of knowledge production. It allows them to be leaders without fear.
Thank you. Cardi Smith.
As a medical professional, social and emotional health is very important. These past 2 years has taught us the importance of schools in supporting the social and emotional health of our children. I believe that our district has embraced this concept, and we need to not only continue the work that has been done, but expand upon it. One such example that Steve mentioned is called the multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS. This is a framework that helps educators provide academic and behavioral strategies for students with various needs. It takes a proactive approach to identifying students with academic or behavioral needs. Early assessment and intervention for these students can help them catch up to their peers sooner. The key components include universal screening of all students early in the school year, tiers of interventions that can be amplified in response to levels of need, ongoing data collection and continual assessment, a school-wide approach to expectations and supports, and most critically, parental involvement. Based on the presentations that we've had from the schools at the board meetings, anywhere from 14 to 52% of our elementary aged students in the district are at risk for challenging antisocial behavior, 14 to 52%. And 11% are receiving the highest tier social and emotional learning support. We not only need to make sure that we have the professionals in place to be able to support them, but that we are also supporting the professionals who are also dealing with challenging social and emotional needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
As Cardi just outlined, in truth, the district has been doing SEL for years. We have invested in SEL training for staff, DBT or dialectical behavioral training for years for staff. And next year, we're going to be doing more SEL training and more response to intervention training at the elementary levels. So we have been doing it, but what we have lacked is a cohesive K-12 structure and program. And that's what we're doing now with MTSS and response to intervention, which we've been hearing about at our board meetings in the presentations that Steve mentioned. SEL is really about supporting student success through life skills, skills that will benefit students in the work world and beyond. So these skills include goal setting, making good choices, resilience, collaboration, self-regulation and managing emotions, self-awareness, empathy, growth mindset. These are skills that executives expect young workers to have entering the workforce. And they are skills, coincidentally or not, that are really important in our definition of the vision for a graduate. Many of these skills show up on that list that was crowdsourced by all the members who were involved in the strategic planning process, and I was one of those. So we need more collaborative learning opportunities, active learning, and more opportunities to provide information and open doors for parents to get involved and ask questions and know that there's a two-way street with social emotional learning in schools and at home.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you, Susan. I'm very proud that Eastchester is implemented the SEL learning system. I'm just not going to really echo, but I do agree what Laurie said in terms of that SEL is a top teaching priority to promote self-awareness and social and emotional health of a child. I think the district has done a phenomenal job with respect to early on education as SEL, from the breathing exercises, the yoga in the class of the children, as well as having heart helpers to help children recognize other kids that might need some help. One of the issues that I do have is that I thought there should be more parental involvement. I think it's wonderful to see from all the Board of Education meetings with respect to all the psychiatrists from the schools coming in and giving their presentation. But I'd like to have seen a survey that was gone out to the parents on a regular basis detailing our observation of our children. I'd like to have seen that data analyzed to find out really how are the children doing? I think it's great that the school is looking at it from the child inside the school, but we also need to incorporate the parental, their observations. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what has been said, but what I will say is I think we need to do more. As I said earlier, there's a real price to pay for inaction, and I think some of the stats that you heard actually represent that. I can tell you as a dad, as someone with 5 children, they were set behind socially and emotionally due to being on Zoom probably too long, to being masked up probably a little bit too long. And there's a real price to pay for that. We need to look for more investment and we need to do more. I am proud of the district for the steps that have been taken, but we're behind. We are behind. I see it with my own children, and I see it with a lot of the folks that I speak to in the community. The heart helpers, the feelings teachers are the right step, but we also need to make sure, and I do want to thank all of our teachers for helping to navigate us through a very difficult time. We need to continue to invest to make sure our teachers have the resources necessary to get our students to where they need to be, not just educationally, but socially and emotionally as well. Analysis and data is fantastic if you do something with it. It's about looking at the data and taking action on it, because there is a real price to pay for inaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Michele, Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, this seems to be a little bit repetitive, but I agree that SEL that is meaningful is so important. Like everyone here has said, it teaches self-awareness, self-management, how to deal with stress, how to not be a perfectionist, for children to empathize with others. They feel compassion towards different cultures, learning how to make good decisions. I think SEL has been invaluable for students, especially after COVID. And I would be interested in meeting with the teachers to see, what their thoughts are as far as that getting implemented in the classroom. I think it's always great to reach out to the teachers because they're the pulse of the school district and see how that's working. But yeah, I'm on board for SEL as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 6. Please identify 1 or 2 specific priorities in the area of special education programming for which you would advocate as a board member. And we'll start with you, Michele.
Well, I have to say, sorry, I'm not getting used to this unmuting thing. I'm going to repeat that. I'm really proud of our special ed program here in Eastchester. All children have learning differences, and those differences are like the flowers in a garden, each one beautiful, unique, and valuable. As a former teacher, I don't want to see any child fall behind. That's unacceptable. Every child should have the opportunity to reach their full potential. 2 of my children had services for speech. Those services helped my children bridge the gap they were experiencing with language. My youngest was also born with a cataract, and she needed services for that too. But all children should know that their ability is greater than their disability. Actually, both my son and daughter peer mentored when they were in the middle school. So, it was a really great experience, especially for my son, because anyone who knows Mike knows that he's pretty shy and he's quiet. And being around students that just say how they're feeling when they're feeling it was very freeing. And I think it encouraged my son to do the same. But, and those friendships made in childhood are not lost. I think Septa honestly is doing a remarkable job. I know they do a lot with the pet therapy programs, grants, fundraisers. I know they just recently had their bingos and brownie night, and that's always a big success. But I think they're a huge force of good for all children in our district. I'm not really sure what Septa can do, more than what I feel like they're already doing. They teach empathy, compassion, and togetherness, to list a few. And this community supports one another and are committed to making sure every child, receives the services they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
Thank you. So, we have a legal obligation, but more importantly, an ethical obligation to make sure that each and every student receives the best education possible. I'm so proud of the robust programs that we have here in Eastchester. A lot of people don't know this, but we have around 450 special ed students in our district. And we have over 50 pre-special ed students as well that aren't in the school district yet. I'm very proud that the budget that the board adopted that will be up for on May 17th in the election continues to expand the co-teach model. I think we need to continue expanding that. We're adding more AIS supports in our schools. And I think that I'm really proud to expand that because that's necessary. I don't know whether we'll need to expand it further in the future, but our amazing educators will let us know their needs. And we're adding instructional leaders to our elementary schools to help our teachers become even greater educators. And I think all of that is really, really important to making our special education program even better. As a trustee, I have always and will continue to support innovations and improvements to address the needs of our students and the budgets that fuel those initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
I have my master's in special education, and I actually started my career at Waverly in a co-teaching setting. I believe that Eastchester School has a wonderful special education program. One of the reasons why my husband and I moved here was because if our children ever needed services, then they would receive them. I would never advocate for cutting special education services. It's an amazing program. This program should be always fully funded to meet the needs of their students. They're doing such an amazing job with providing transparency for parents by educating them about the placement process, what to expect at a CSE meeting, the RTI process, and the flexible pathways that their children might be experiencing. They're also dedicated to ensuring that all our children feel supported and successful in our schools. And they advocate for children with special needs that for their right to a free and appropriate education in their least restrictive environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan.
Thank you. So I think it is absolutely vital as we move forward with our board to listen very intently to Septa and include them in board meetings explicitly. So I'm going to basically offer some of the things we can do, right? And so a second thing is to partner with Septa to nurture relationships between special education students and general ed students in middle school and high school. We have that type of partnership at Ann Hutch, but we really need to expand that to create a sense of community and a sense of belonging much more expansively for all of our students. And then we need to create partnerships with the community, and we have a wide assortment of experts and skilled people where we can create partnerships for internships for special education students as well as for our general education students. And then there is no such thing as a singular student, as one type of student. And so thus we need to continue to listen deeply and intently to understand what are the resources that we need to use to support all of our students, including those who are special education and those that need services, so that they as students and their families can meet their educational and career goals.
Thank you. Artie Smith.
As I shared, my oldest child had an IEP, and coming from New York City, it was like a breath of fresh air to have a school system that was so supportive and engaged in a way where I felt like I didn't have to quite advocate as much as I did when I was in New York City. More than that, I feel that children benefit from the professional development that all staff get around these topics. I know that my daughter benefits from the canine therapy and the deep breathing exercises she has in class. And as has been mentioned, she's also a heart helper, and since kindergarten has been paired with students in the self-contained classrooms. I have seen her have a tremendous personal growth from having exposure to others who learn differently from her. And in the process, she's learned compassion and most importantly, acceptance. I think my colleague Cheryl has taught me how important relationships are and building relationships as a part of the board. I am not an expert in all things, and part of my role as a trustee would be looking to the experts. And in this case, that would be one, the parents who would tell us what their children are experiencing and need more of. And second, those are the special education teachers. And whether that is through expanding our flexible pathways or our co-teaching classrooms, it will be important to listen to what the needs of our students are. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
I agree. The partnership and relationship with parents are critical. And I agree with other colleagues who have said that Septa is a force for good and it doesn't seem like they could do much more, but the district can do more. We need to step up. I think we are at a critical juncture with special ed, and my one main priority is to hire a new assistant superintendent for PPS. I was on part of that search committee. This is a really critical moment because after many years of service, Dr. Noreen Urso is retiring, and we need to hire someone who can rebuild trusts and relationships to ensure student success, who will continue the ongoing work on MTSS and RTI training at the elementary level, who will work with the math consultant that the district is going to bring in next year for differentiated instruction, who will continue on our path of scaling up integrated co-teaching. We started at 6th grade, went through the middle school. It's bubbling up more and more into the high school with integrated co-teaching in Algebra 1 and geometry. These are opportunities that we have to think, now we're building momentum and we have to enhance these opportunities, and hiring the right person, the right leader, who will work effectively with parents, will work meaningfully with students and build those relationships, and work really meaningfully with the instructional leaders and teachers who are on the ground. Our special ed teachers are really probably the greatest resource in the district.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you. I'm just going to echo moving to Eastchester. Eastchester was always well known for their special education services. And my husband and I always knew that if any of our children needed any special education services, that they would get that at Eastchester, no questions asked. As an attorney with my work of pro bono, I've seen firsthand how callous the New York City school districts can be to children with special needs. I've been told on numerous occasions, well, maybe if the child would get a better sleep, he would do better on his test. And this is a child who suffered from severe dyslexia. I knew firsthand how hard it was to fight to get that child either their services they needed or to be put into a school that actually serviced that child. Eastchester's done a phenomenal job. I think Septa is a force to be reckoned with. I do agree with Cheryl in terms that there could be more done in the district. I feel that we need more co-teachers and less administrators. I think that the co-teachers have done a great job in terms of the administration. I think that was money that we could use for co-teachers as opposed to hiring vice principals. Eastchester also in the district has done amazing work with the Heart Helpers. And I know Little League is doing such a great job with the Little Buddy Helpers so that our children can feel all inclusive, not just in the academic realm, but also in the sports world. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you. Just to echo what some of my colleagues said here, my wife and I, like many of us in this room and many of you on the call, moved here because of the exemplary special ed programs. What I will say is, and I think going back to the question, what are the things that we would do as a trustee in terms of special ed? I think there needs to be more investment. I think there needs to be more inclusion with the community. We should look at developing peer mentoring programs even deeper than we currently have them. I also think we need to look at each child as an individual. The world has changed for all of our kids. We need to be nimble. We need to be responsive. We need to have the ability to pivot. And part of that is what happens after graduation? What are the supports? What are the programs that we have in place? And I think it's an area that we need to look at more and invest in more. And I can't stress it enough. Data and analysis and research and consultants are all wonderful things if we act on what we get. We are at a pivotal moment in many, many ways. We need to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 7. What do you feel is the one most pressing issue in Eastchester schools that needs to be addressed? And how do you plan to contribute to finding a solution to that issue? We'll start with you, Matt.
From my perspective, I think currently right now, one of the biggest issues is actually curriculum. I want to first thank again all of the wonderful teachers that are going above and beyond every single day for all of our children. As I said earlier, it's very unfortunate to me that Eastchester has fallen behind other districts. And I think part of that is because our teachers were not given the proper tools, the time, the resources that are needed to keep us on top. Just as an example, for some of our early readers, we're still using wonder words. We're just now starting to look at Fontes and Pinnell and Teachers College. We've actually fallen behind other districts where we used to have blue ribbon schools. We used to be ranked. We're not anymore. The word that really comes to mind for me is stagnant. And I think one of the ways to really look at that is to take action on all of the data and the analysis that we have. It's hiring a superintendent that has very strong financial intelligence. So when it comes to investment in curriculum, we actually get budget options, not just one budget that's presented. Let's look at different budget options that support different things for the benefit of our children. Let's be inclusive. Again, as it pertains to curriculum, I have spoken to retired teachers, retired board members, retired superintendents that still live in this community that have expressed to me, no one has ever reached out for their opinion. That is something that we need to focus on, and we need to take action now. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. Although I agree with Matt about the curriculum, I think the most pressing issue for me at this moment is safety and security. At a recent Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Glass stated that he acknowledged that we have many challenges in regards to this area at this point. We often can't replace guards who call in sick, apparently due to a high turnover rate with security personnel. This is unacceptable, and we must find ways to address this issue. I would love, and I've kind of always thought it would be great to have retired police officers at the schools. Right now we're scrambling, and that's not the words that any parent or teacher or administrator want to hear. And our security should not be outsourced. This district needs to maintain supervision of security. And Eagles Upward supports looking into additional school resources and or hiring retired law enforcement officers from our community in order to prevent the little gaps from adding up. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
So I think curriculum improvement is the most pressing issue here. And I'm proud that we are rolling out new new math curriculum next year in the elementary schools and ELA curriculum the following year. We're also adding new robotics programs, and I look forward to seeing more coding and STEM development in the future. We're going to begin the important task of curriculum mapping to ensure that there's horizontal and vertical coordination and alignment. This will improve our ability to make education a journey rather than just a set of experiences. But to be successful in all of this, we need a school board that is willing to invest in the future of our children. We also need to look at differentiation of this curriculum so we can meet students where they are now and flexible pathways to meet them where they will be in the future. I do want to address the security guard comments because I think one of us misheard Dr. Glass's statements because we use a contractor that supplies our security guards, and they supply those security guards. If someone's out sick, they send someone else in to actually take the place of that security guard. If we were in an employment model, we would not be able to hire a security guard in such a short time. Additionally, contractors, when someone needs to be exited from the district, which has happened multiple times, they provide replacements. And they also train those guards who are also former.
Excuse me, you can have 30 seconds for rebuttal since you're rebutting if you'd like, but otherwise you need to stop.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
I agree with Matt. The most pressing issue that needs to be addressed is curriculum. As I mentioned before, I started my career at Waverly and then I moved on to the New York City Public Schools. I realized how far behind we are in areas of curriculum. We need to compare ourselves to other districts and assess how up to date our curriculum really is. We need to strive for more competitive and current programs and give the wonderful teachers the proper tools in their classrooms. We need more authentic reading and writing, instilling self-reflective practices and independence for students, and from kindergarten to high school in order to prepare them for the world outside of Eastchester. I also feel some of our students aren't being challenged enough. We need to provide enrichment experiences for the students, especially in areas of STEM and literacy. Students feel most empowered when they're engaged and independent in their learning. We want to foster critical thinkers and problem solvers and guide all Eastchester students to become lifelong learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Steve and with Laurie and the focus on the curriculum. And what I want to do is to stress that while also mention that it is important that unless students have access to mental health, the student experience of the curriculum falls short. And so for me, mental health is a pivotal space to think, especially for athletes in our school. What does life look like after sport if you're not going to be a collegiate athlete or a professional athlete, right? And that's where I can bring someone like Tyson Hartnett, who is a former professional basketball player who can talk about life after sports and mental health. Mental health after our high school experience. How do we prepare for college and life after high school? Mental health and how do we engage with our community? How do we feel connected and become a part of our community? And mental health with regards to leadership training. How do we give our students a sense of, claim, a sense of place and a space by which to articulate their vision of the world? And I think with this, we also have to think about with leadership training, how to engage with the major things happening in our world with gun violence and how to talk about mental health and create explicit spaces to talk about what matters to our students. And finally, stress something that the students need, which is find places for their passion, pleasure, and joy, both in academic work as well as in poetry, art, drama, music, sport, and theater. Thank you.
Thank you. Cardi Smith.
Going around and sitting on parents' living rooms and sitting on their decks, we've heard one consistent theme emerge, which really was around support for children who have higher, more advanced learning needs, so that they are in an environment that is the most academically rigorous and challenging based on where they are. I would like to see increased funding for teaching assistants and more co-teaching classes, which I think will allow for differentiation of instruction within the same classroom. I think we have the opportunity to use the data we have on students' ability to ensure this differentiation occurs at the kindergarten level and goes straight out through 12. We have a strategic plan in place and a new math and reading curriculum that will be rolled out, but there is so much more to do. We need to ensure that the strategic plan guides our work and is a scaffolding for parents to understand what is expected of our students and how we can hold our administrators accountable. Second, I think focus on enhancing our technological science and STEM footprint will be critical to ensuring that our school district is as competitive as those around us. I talked about the new reading and math curricula, and we really should be expanding our science curricula starting at Waverly as well, which really is only in its infancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
Cardi gave me a good segue because I think the one most critical thing we need to do is implement this strategic coherence plan that we spent. A large team spent hours and hours developing over 2021. This is the first time, at least in recent history, that the district has a strategic coherence plan, and it's at least 3 years coming. We hired the consultant back in 2019. So implementation of this plan is our #1 priority. And it really is an umbrella that will capture a lot of our concerns around curriculum. So what are the first steps? First, implementation and making sure we're putting resources where they're needed. We have to communicate out the vision of a graduate and the definition of deep learning. Everyone has to be on the same page with this, right? Families have to have opportunities for meaningful engagement. The rationale and purpose of the vision of a graduate has to be understood. So we have to get it out there in newsletters, BOE meetings, PTAs, open houses, email marketing, everything. And the definition of deep learning has to be consistently communicated and used for instruction and assessment. And we have to resolve any gaps between the articulation of deep learning as it has already been defined by our instructional leaders and teaching for deep learning. And at the grade levels, they will start finalizing working drafts of definitions and rubrics for feedback on the skills and definitions and dispositions in the vision of a graduate. And we will put that out to the public so those rubrics and those definitions are clear to families, so we're all on the same page and we can be transparent and accountable.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what my colleague Matt said. The biggest issue is curriculum, and that folds into our budget. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the teachers who have done a phenomenal job these past several years in helping our children through these uncertain times. However, I think there's more to be done to help our teachers to get up to par with other districts. As you know, Eastchester has now ranked 93 in New York and 1003 nationally. We are behind in Yonkers. We pay such high taxes, and yet we are behind in the Yonkers School District. But that's, again, we need to compare Eastchester to these other districts to find out what are we doing wrong. And one of the things that we are doing wrong that we have seen is that Eastchester is slow to the ball game. They are slow to adopt programs. You know, it's great that we have all these programs that are rolling out now, but it shouldn't have taken the past several years to get these programs out. Eastchester has been hit, unfortunately, the issue with the board is that it's stagnant and it's paralysis by analysis. Again, 6 years to roll out several programs that we are so far behind, especially in the Yonkers School District. We need to return to authentic learning, and we need to have competitive programs for our advanced and gifted children. And we also make sure that the children who struggle are not just getting by, that they're afforded the needs that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 8. Can the annual athletic budget support and maintain its programs at a standard that is comparable to other school districts we compete against? How can Eastchester change its culture to become a best-in-class district? I'm going to start with you, Michele. Oh, wait, did I miss somebody?
Christine.
Oh, Christine, did you not answer number 7? I told you I would do this. I'm so sorry. And I did it. Okay, sorry. There we go. Christine, please answer number 7.
Eight.
She starts with number 8.
This is 8.
Question number 8.
Question.
Chris starts with number 8. Yes, Christine starts with number 8. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Can the annual athletic budget support and maintain its programs at a standard that is comparable to other school districts we compete against? How can Eastchester change its culture to become a best-in-class district? I understand what I did. Okay, Christine.
Thank you, Susan. In the short answer, no. Unfortunately, the budget doesn't account for athletics in fields, which I think is shocking. Now, in order to sort of change this mindset, one of the things that we would advocate for is to have multiple budgets being presented to the board as opposed to one budget being handed at the end of the year and saying, here's the final draft, accept it or not accept it. I think the budget needs to encompass athletes, the sports, and the fields. And I think one of the things that would also help the district is that we need to have a superintendent that would promote athletics and sports and cares about the fields. Athletes and athletics, they bring a special bond to the community. It just bridges the gap between the athletes, band members, AV, cheerleaders. It's such a great, well-known program for sports. I mean, you just have to look to Texas or what the Miracle on Ice team did back in the 80s, how it unifies a community. And then with respect to the fields, I think we need to have either look into hiring an outside maintenance program to invest in our fields because it's a safety issue, not just an aesthetic issue, it's a safety issue. So in short, we need to have a budget that looks at all aspects of Eastchester Life. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew.
Thank you. We need to have focus. That's the word that I keep coming back to. And it has to be something that everyone, including the superintendent, actually buys into. The fields is an area where a little bit of money actually goes a long way. And the reality is they need to be redone because we have not focused on it, because we have not maintained them. And as I've spoken to many parents throughout the community, as many of you know, my family is active in football, lacrosse, soccer, t-ball. There are some real safety issues, specifically at the Greenvale field, with holes, with rocks, that things are occurring. We need to have a focus on it. Eagles Nation is a real thing. We should have pride in that. As someone here mentioned a little bit earlier, what happens after that? What about alumni associations? How can we have a focus and how can we get that pride back? I can tell you from firsthand experience, when my oldest daughter participated in sports in the high school, she finished, and that was kind of it. I think it is a real thing, and we need everyone from the superintendent to the board to actually buy into that. And we need to, again, include the community as part of those decisions and really get some input from them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thanks, Susan. It's no question that we need to put more money into athletics. Sports, they tie a community together. They provide so much to the student: friendship, discipline, teamwork, and we know the physical activity is good for the mind, body, and spirit. I think creating a first-class athletics program first starts with hiring a superintendent who believes in promoting and reevaluating our current program from the top down. The second step is making sure our coaches are good role models who are creating an atmosphere of caring for their players well after the season is over, possibly even guiding students in the process of playing their sport in college. We should want our coaches to teach the whole person and not just the athlete. Coaches, like our students, should be lifelong learners, constantly adapting to new techniques in the game. Coaches should create a culture of teamwork. As Michael Jordan once said, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. I would love to see Eastchester gain a reputation for an outstanding sports program in which all kids can be proud to be Eagles for life. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Brzenski.
So a general rule of thumb in budgeting would be that you generally want around 5% of your operating budget to be for routine maintenance and repair. So for our budget of $96.2 million, that would be roughly a little less than $5 million. Unfortunately, we have to do more work on our facilities and our fields than routine maintenance. In the last few years, we've made a number of improvements to our athletic facilities, locker rooms, fields, press box. We're going to, gym, the workout rooms. And the recently passed bond actually has over $1.3 million of improvements to our athletic fields in it. Improvements to the high school baseball and softball fields, the addition of visitor bleachers at the turf field. And we need to be aware, of course, of future replacements that we're going to need, right? So turf life expectancy is about 10 to 12 years. We're going to have to remove and recoat the track and turf, and that's going to be probably around $800,000, right? Our buildings are going to need new gym floors in another decade or so. So we definitely need to think about putting money into our budgets and or capital plan to ensure that we're taking care of these and upgrading our facilities. But we also need to think about protecting our investment. I want the community to be able to use our fields and our facilities, but we have to have the appropriate infrastructure to prevent and protect our investment from being mistreated. Unfortunately, what's that? Did I run out?
Time is up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Laurie Giacobbe.
Athletics is so important in the school setting. It focuses on teamwork, good sportsmanship, and determination. Sports tie a community together. The fields deserve the same upkeep and level of safety that the rest of the school does. Many of these fields are unsafe. There's rocks and holes at Greenvale, and we as taxpayers are paying into these fields where our kids learn and play. These fields can be upkept with little money. Continuing our partnership with Eastchester Little League and the Eastchester Soccer League to help make these fields a safe place to learn and play and learn. Sports are about camaraderie and teamwork, and having safe, up-to-date fields is crucial in drawing kids to sports, and budgeting for the athletic program is a must moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan, Thangaraj.
Yeah, thank you. It's so great to answer this question as someone who's had 25 years as a coach in every level of sport. I think some of the things we need, I think my colleagues have answered it on the financial realm. I'm going to talk about what we need for our players and our coaches. And so one, we need support for our coaches in ways in which, coaches have a permanent place within the institution and have forms of mentorship that coaches are mentored and are trained and are provided the skills to let their athletes succeed. And with that, we need to create a greater connection with the community to also bring in experts in the community into our gyms and our fields and our courts. And another area we need to think about is to open gym nights with regards to funding, create open gym and open field, where we let young people have access to our courts from our community, so that sport is such a healthy and vital and affirming part of young people's lives is affirmed at a very young age through free play in our courts, fields, and gyms. And then one of the things I hope to do is also create explicit partnerships with the professional leagues that I work with, such as the NBA, MLB, NHL, and the NFL and MLS, to see what we can do to bring the pro leagues into our field, not just as spectators, but as sponsors, and to create pathways to futures for our student athletes, both within sport and outside of sport.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith. Artie Smith.
So sports, as everyone has said, can be such an important component of children's identities. The facilities we use to engage in sports are really essential to success. As a parent with two girls who are actively engaged in soccer, I know that it is important to their identity. And not only is it important that all students have access to good facilities, but we also want to make sure that the instruction is the same and access is the same regardless of your gender. I don't know if you all remember seeing the locker rooms of a girls sporting team compared to a male sporting team. And there were stark differences and inequities with the male sporting team having much more advantage than the female team. I would want to make sure that we have equal access to good facilities for all, so everyone can achieve their best self. I think that we know there's money earmarked to improve our fields and our facilities. And so as a trustee, it would be important to make sure that there was good project management and fiscal oversight of that. I think we've been talking about improving these fields probably even before my family moved here. And so it will be important to make sure that we are engaging in that work. I also think that it could be a good opportunity for public-private partnership. Other fields in our community have done that, and it's a really great way to get local businesses and our community more engaged in the work of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheryl Smith.
So to answer the question, can the annual budget support and maintain programs at a comparable rate with other districts? I think the answer is yes. Yes, it can. And any budget decision is about prioritizing. I think we absolutely can. And when we do, I understand there might be confusion about how the budget process happens. We do look at previous drafts, and I think it would be great to share those out to the community. Here are different options with our budgets. And if we want to put more money into fields and athletics, this is how that budget will look, and this is what the tax hit would be. And if we don't want to do that this year, this is the alternative, because it's very helpful for board members and community members to see that. It is incredibly important that our bond will allow us to start right in on the baseball and softball field improvements here at the high school, stormwater improvements, because we know drainage is a huge problem, and visitor bleachers with a walking path. That's going to be the first priority one this summer. And I think that will really infuse a lot of energy into the district. I agree that we need partnerships between the board, the school administration, the community, sports clubs. We have some of that happening now, the partnerships with ELL and the soccer and youth soccer to maintain and improve fields, more parental voice so we know where we need to make improvements and what kinds of partnerships and community members we can pull in to make those things happen. Partnerships for fundraising too, but it can't just be about fundraising. It has to come from the budget.
Thank you. Question 9. What are the attributes of a successful high school that meets the needs of all students, and what could you do to make the experience at Eastchester High School better? We'll start with you, Cheryl.
The attributes of a successful high school is one that has a lot of individualized instruction so that we are meeting students where they are. We need to create flexible pathways for student success. We're starting to see really, really important steps in this direction. We are going to be rolling out summer programs to support students in really significant transition moments in high school. So there'll be a summer program to support 8th graders rising up into 9th grade. We need, I think, a better peer mentoring system at the high school. We've talked about Ann Hutch Has Heart and peer mentors for younger students, mentors for coaches, mentors for teachers are incredibly important, but we should be matching up upperclassmen with younger students because they need that sense of belonging and they need the information that they get from the older students who have gone through the process, both the curricular information and the extracurricular information. So flexible pathways, partnerships, and mentorship for students in the high school, really important, and the continual innovation in course offerings. This new course teacher we're hiring in math and robotics will be so important for computer science education leading into an engineering track that students can opt into. That kind of innovation and rigor that students can find their niche. By the time they're in high school, they need to be able to do that.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you, Susan. As I said, I have 2 young girls at Ann Hutch right now, so high school is several years away. But in terms of thinking back to, the attributes as to what makes a great high school, I have to harken back to my old high school. And there are key aspects that I think that would be helpful to the high school. Number one, I think we need to have a stellar alumni association that looks to give back to the high school, and it also would serve as role models to the students that are in the school. And I think secondly, I think we have to take a crucial look at the guidance counselors to help parents, for the first time parents of children who are going on to college, to help navigate that arduous path. I also think there should be a focus, not just only on grades with courses, but as a well-rounded adult. I know this might sound a little old-fashioned, but I do believe that there is something to say about trades. So much is focused on the academics. Well, some children are not academically inclined, and that's okay. I think children need to hear that you don't necessarily have to go to college in this day and age. You're perfectly welcomed to explore whatever interest, especially a trade in the carpentry field or the construction field, anything that interests them. So I think there has to be shed light on a student who necessarily has concerns about going to college. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you, Susan. When I think about the successful attributes of a high school, I'll speak to you all from my firsthand experience. I actually have my oldest daughter graduated from Eastchester High School. And I will say, in spite of a tremendous amount of adversity, she's done very, very well. When she was in high school, what was lacking most for her, and what's lacking most for a lot of our kids in the high school currently right now, is the preparedness for the beyond. And when I talk about the preparedness for the beyond, to what Christine said, whether that's going into a trade and being supported in that, whether it's the help to prepare for the college process, whether that's preparing for something else, that was lacking. That to me is the epitome of what a successful high school looks like. It's when we can look back at the graduates and say, over the course of a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. They have become the leaders, the next generation of tradesmen, of college graduates, of people that have given back to their community and actually made a difference. Living in this community again, it's part of the reason why my wife and I moved here, was for the schools. And that entire college process was really left up to us to navigate. That to me is what success looks like, preparing our students for the beyond, whatever that is, on a very individualized level. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thanks, Susan. I don't want to reiterate what Christine and Matt said, because everything they said is right on the mark. I'm actually concerned about the morale when it comes to the teachers. I just recently discovered that we have about 14 teachers retiring this year, and there's a retirement party scheduled at Molino's at Lake Isle on Monday, June 13th. Out of the 14 teachers, only one is attending, and that speaks volumes to me. Our teachers need more support. I'm concerned about losing our great teachers that we have here, because they've been through a lot these last couple of years, and I want them to know that they're appreciated, and we can't thank them enough for what they've done for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
So I think, you know, I really liked a lot of what Matt said about the preparation for the next step. You know, niche.com ranked us A+ in college preparation, but they focus mostly on the academic side of that, right? And that's particularly focused on college readiness. I think, you know, I'm proud of some of the expansion that we've had with our BOCES trade program, but I think we need to get out of the mindset that college must be the next step. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And we need to prepare our students for the world wherever they're going. I also think in terms of academics and curriculum, I think to continue to be a wonderful high school, we need to add, we've just added this robotics program. We need to add more coding. I'm really looking forward to that in the future, more STEM programming. We need to keep up and bring education into the future, because if we stand still, we're falling behind everyone else. So I think that's incredibly important. I also think curriculum differentiation really impacts here as well. We need to meet students where they are, but we need the flexible pathways so that if they're not ready for something now, but they are next year, that we have a pathway for them to get back onto that track. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie Giacobbe.
Some successful attributes of a high school would be creating critical thinkers, problem solvers, and like what Matt said, creating lifelong learners and preparedness for the real world, not just college preparedness. In the strategic coherence plan, I know one of the goals was creating a clear sense of some graduation goals was like a respectful individual, lifelong learner, an effective communicator who thinks of like a complex thinker and problem solver. And one of the gaps was a vision of the graduate needs better communication. So I also feel that, you know, it's a big step for parents too, especially if it's their first child going to college, that they also need preparedness. So I think Eastchester needs to work on parent communication also throughout that step. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan.
Thank you. So I think there are several things we can do to have a successful high school. One is, you know, one of the points that Cardi had mentioned earlier, which is we need to actually expand upon our STEM commitment and our really high scoring students to provide support for them by partnering with colleges to see what types of STEM classes are open and available for our high performing students. The second is we need to create a more vibrant and really dedicated partnership with New York City. We live so close to the city, and yet that is not at all a resource for us. And this is what several parents have shared with us on our campaign trail, that we need partnerships with museums, art galleries, organizations, colleges, sports teams, and corporations in New York City, so that our students leave high school with an expanded social network. Then we need to work in ways to support our teachers. And this is where the last few years, the attacks on teachers have been absolutely brutal and disheartening. And we need to find ways to support teachers by realizing that we have teachers who are trained in education, who are educators, and we have to establish partnerships between teachers and families that support teachers in their expertise. And finally, I think we have to help, create a board space, a Board of Education space that centers student voices.
Thank you. Artie Smith.
Yeah. So I think a lot of folks here today have echoed really the attributes for a successful student. I would say being a critical thinker is really important as we are in this new age where we are being inundated with new information constantly. It's important that we allow our students to have an opportunity to receive accurate and complete information so that they can be encouraged to grapple with this information through analysis and critique. It's how we help them become critical thinkers and informed citizens. I also think, my experience with my high school student was very different from Matt's. And what that tells me is that there is much work that we can do to make sure that we have equity so that all students have the same access to either college preparedness and college readiness or to go out into the workforce. And more importantly, those of us who are parents have the same level of support so that we can help guide our children through that work. Next, I think, not all of our children will stay in Eastchester. Some of them will go out and beyond. And to have a successful student, we need to make sure that they have those connections to a more global world and that we're giving them the innovation that they need to succeed, whether that's in trades or that's going on to college level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your,
I was going to say, I have a rebuttal.
oh, you have a rebuttal.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Rebuttal. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to say I appreciate Michele for calling out our similarities, and yet I do think that we have unique differences. And one of those is that I happen to identify as a Black Hispanic woman. And I want to say that, I was present at a meeting where you defended students' use of the N-word in an event from a song. In fact, the song wasn't using that word, it was a clean version. And although you and the Equals Upward platform does support inclusion, I just have to tell you that for me, as a person of color, being on the board, I would feel concerned that you wouldn't represent my interests of my family, and I've spoken to others who have felt the same.
Matt, you have a rebuttal?
What I would say is, in getting to know Michele, as I said before, my own family is biracial. My oldest daughter is Hispanic. My nieces identify as Black. I would never align myself with someone that feels that they would not have the ability to represent every single person in this community. For those of you that know me, that's a fact. I welcome anyone to come to my Thanksgiving Day dinner and sit at the table with me and my family. Again, I would not align myself with anyone that is not an inclusive individual and that would not represent everyone in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Michele? 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I just sit here and I find it a bit ironic from some of the comments that you made, because you as well got up at a Board of Ed meeting and I felt your remarks were very discriminatory against unvaccinated kids, where you talked about your daughter actually saying in class to her friends while one child was unmasked, well, we talked about so-and-so's grandmother, how she has cancer, and how basically the responsibility I felt on your daughter's shoulders, to either save a life, they have the ability to do that, or harm a life. So I sit here and I just, like I said, I find it very ironic. Thank you.
30, one more rebuttal.
I would just like to clarify, and I invite anyone to go back to look at the videos of what I said. What I was talking about was in reference to the one day where no one was sure what the law was around masks in school. And I was telling Dr. Glass that I felt the way in which it was handled wasn't in the best way because it didn't give parents the opportunity to prepare their own children for what to expect when going into school. And I used that example of my daughter wanting to continue to wear her mask for her friend as an example of how that was challenging.
Thank you. Michelle, you cannot have another rebuttal. We're allowed two.
I only have one.
You had two.
I have one.
No, I have one.
She's only had one.
You had two? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Susan. I also want to point out that you also said at a Board of Ed meeting that you were getting several texts and calls from friends that were chasing their children down on the school bus, yelling, "Don't sit next to anybody that is wearing that's not wearing a mask." I just felt that was, like I said, once again, very discriminatory against kids that were not wearing masks or unvaccinated kids, for as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you all. We are at the end of our questions, and we are going to start with the closing statements. The closing statements will be 1 minute, and they will be made in the reverse order of the opening statements. So the first person to make a closing statement then will be Hardy Smith. 1 minute for a closing statement.
My vision for the future of the Eastchester School District is that we prepare and motivate our students by instilling in them critical thinking skills and ensuring that every student is achieving at their maximum potential in a safe, respectful, and challenging learning environment. Public education is supposed to be open to all types of students and a multitude of diverse ideas, a place where we can learn from one another. I, for one, love engaging in discussions with people who think differently from me because I learn in the process. If elected, I will encourage a culture of empathy where no student experiences school as an environment of exclusion. My role as a trustee is not to think about my own personal values or agenda, but the needs of all students. My goal is that we have a caring community where all students thrive, all staff feel supported, and all parents can engage as partners in their child's education. I hope that you will vote for the candidates that will most help our school communities become stronger. Please vote for Cardinale Smith, Sheryl Smith, Steve Projansky, and Stan Thangaraj. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanley Thangaraj.
Education is a building block. Every step of the journey for our students and for our teachers is adding new blocks to the intellectual and social growth of our students. Thus, I am deeply invested in education as a building block. We moved to the district for a great education. We must have an education that fits our students for 2022 and the near future. A move backward is a dismantling of education that will harm all of our students and all of our families. Education is a building block. We build by expanding the curriculum. We build by providing support for all of our students. We cannot build if we do not address barriers to education, such as bullying and the discrimination on our grounds. A school board with my colleagues, Smith, Brzenski, and myself, will help nurture spaces where students collaborate and learn from each other, and the community collaborates with the schools to prepare our students for the amazing world in and out of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie.
What makes the school district strong is unity, vision, and in this case, new beginnings. I believe that we are at a turning point in Eastchester where curricular initiatives need guidance and support. Education is a top priority, and I am committed to helping set the direction of the Eastchester School District to achieve the highest student performance. With this in mind, I ask our families and friends at home to consider this question: who will truly advocate for your children and partner with you to do so? We need authentic and transparent representatives who are supportive of parental choice and voice. We need board members who love and appreciate this town. I am confident that I will be that person for you on the board. I am here for you. I'm here for our students, and I'm here for this wonderful town we call home. Thank you. Please vote for me, Laurie Giacobbe, along with my running mates, Christine, Matt, and Michelle on May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Projansky.
We're at a pivotal point here for our district. We're hiring a new superintendent. We have to implement our new strategic plan, and we're implementing new curriculum. There's a lot going on here. And we need experienced board members to do all of these things and ensure that we do it well. We've heard a lot tonight, implications from some that our district is falling in rankings, and it did fall in one ranking. The US News and World Report, our high school fell. However, I do want to point out, we have an A+ rating on niche.com. We also are ranked on niche.com as the 545th best public high school in America. That's an improvement from 580 in 2017. Niche.com also ranks our best public 128 best public high school teachers in America. That's an improvement from 378 in 2017. So I think we have a lot of good things going on in this district. We all moved here for this district, right? Everyone either moved or, thank you. I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Lawlor.
Thank you, Susan. Experience does matter, but the right experience matters more. With me, you're getting a state certified elementary education teacher. I know that my fellow neighbors are running as educators as well, but adult education and elementary education are two completely different worlds. Let me remind you that our veteran Board of Ed members did not advocate for the children at Waverly when they were forced to eat their lunch off dirty hallway floors, especially since one Board of Ed member was the liaison to Waverly at the time. They did not propose solutions to get our kids back to school full time. One did not advocate for mask choice, while themselves not wearing a mask at executive sessions, but yet not affording our children that luxury. We are on the brink of transformational change. Our focus must return to academics and excellence. We pay far too much in taxes to have our schools ranked behind many other neighboring districts. John Maxwell once wrote, "A pessimist complains about the wind. An optimist expects the wind to change. A leader adjusts the sails. It's time to adjust the sails." Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Fanelli.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone again for joining tonight. As you all know, voting for a school board trustee is one of the most important decisions that you have to make. As I've said to all of you this evening, I have a vested interest in our community and our schools for many years to come. You have my commitment to take action, to take a stand, to actually make a decision, and to advocate for every child in this district. I do what I say I will do. I will watch every penny and ask questions about every decision that's being made that impacts our children. We are on the brink of a significant transformation here in Eastchester. The question to ask yourselves is, do you want someone who's going to defer, deflect, and abstain, or someone who's actually going to make a decision? It would be my honor to have your vote on May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Lombardi.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. As we all know, these past years have been challenging to everyone. While the current board members have made waves to return us to normal, we can't ignore the fact that the pandemic exposed the deficiencies of the board. For far too long, the Eastchester board enjoyed smooth sailing. While our adversaries tout their experience on the board, we must hearken to the words of FDR. Calm seas do not make an experienced sailor. When Eastchester encountered a storm, what did our board do? Did they tell us to remain calm and navigate us to safety? No. It was every man, woman, and child for themselves. We discovered we were on the Titanic. The pleadings of the parents were met with deflection, deferral, and abstention. Requests for accommodations for our youngest learners were treated like an impossible feat. Indeed, the simplest request, such as to get our children off the floor during lunchtime to restore their dignity, was met with disbelief and inaction.
Thank you.
Is that-
Okay. Yes, Cheryl, you're next.
is that a minute?
Sheryl Smith.
I came to the board 6 years ago because I wanted to ensure all students receive a quality education in a safe, healthy environment. Since then, I have worked on budgets, the implementation of a large bond, the high school bond, hiring a superintendent and the strategic plan. I know our past, what we have accomplished, the stormy seas we have navigated, and the goals and initiatives that remain to be fulfilled. As a current educator in the classroom now who has taught through COVID, I have the knowledge base and relationships to support forward progress. Voters should be skeptical of campaigns and candidates that seek, whether at this forum or during board meetings, to distract from educational issues. My focus has been and will continue to be on moving the needle on important educational issues: literacy, writing, math, science, the vision of a graduate and strategic planning, professional development and support of our educators, and the quality of students' learning environments and opportunities. That's what we should be talking about, and that's what I'm going to keep talking about with my running mates, Steve Projansky, Stan Thangaraj, and Cardi Smith.
Thank you. Thank you to all of the candidates. Serving the public in any elected capacity is a noble and laudable calling. Being a candidate takes courage, commitment, and a dedication to the common good. I would like to thank all the candidates for their participation this evening. Thank you to the Eastchester PTA, to the council, and to this community. Please remember to vote by official ballot on May 17th between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Thank you and good night.